Have you ever thought about what you would do if you were given a life-changing cancer diagnosis? How would it impact your family? How would it impact your business, your career, your mental health? Do you think you would be able to maintain a growth mindset while battling one of life's biggest challenges? My guest today has done just that, and she's going to share her journey on this episode of The Resilient Advisor.
You're listening to the Resilient Advisor podcast. This episode of the Resilient Advisor is brought to you by the Titleist Advisor Network, where independent financial advisors become resilient, high-growth business owners. Since 2003, we've been private equity-free, helping advisors build real equity in their firms. Learn more at jointitleist.com.
Welcome to the Resilient Advisor podcast, where we bring industry experts to help you build your business your way. My name is Jay Coulter, and my guest today is Tina Powell from Intentionally. And we're not going to spend too much time talking about marketing. We're going to talk about what real resilience is. If you're catching this interview live on LinkedIn, YouTube, or X, and you'd like to ask Tina questions during this interview, simply put a comment into the social media platform, and I'll be able to share it with Tina. Tina, thank you so much for coming on.
I'm so honored. I've been looking forward to this conversation now for weeks, months that we've known that we were going to do it. So thank you. It really is truly an honor. I love the work that you're doing, Jay. I've been following you for years and now we're friends, which is really an incredible, special thing to me. And to be on your show is just like, I've got goosebumps.
Oh, you are way too kind. I got to tell you how Tina and I met. I had been through a very short bout with cancer, and I kept my journey to myself. And then I watched Tina. And Tina, and we're going to get into her journey, was starting to share her journey publicly. Gosh, this must have been 3-4 years ago now, Tina. I'm getting old. I'm losing track of time. But I just picked up the phone and cold called you. And while we were connected on social media, we never had a conversation. You and I remember where I was sitting. We had a 2-hour conversation about battling cancer and dealing everything that comes along with it. You were so open and kind and giving with your journey. Can you help listeners and viewers set the stage for what we're going to talk about today? Tell us about your cancer journey.
Wow. So my cancer journey started, I'm getting ready, Jay, on January 16th, 2026 to celebrate my 3-year cancer anniversary. I never even knew that there was such a thing as like a cancer anniversary. And the way that my cancer journey started was because of a routine executive physical. I had no symptoms. I was riding horses. I was doing Pelotons. I was going to Orange Theory. And there were like a couple of things that were a little bit out of whack. But I credit my business partner and the CEO and the founder of Intentionally, Kelly Waltrick, which really led me to that executive physical. So in January of 2023, we were celebrating her 40th birthday. She turns around and she's like, "Hey, you know what I want for my birthday?" She goes, "You guys are never going to guess." We're like, "Okay, Cal, what is it?" She goes, "I want one of those like full body scans. I want one of those full body scans." She even had one of the hand motions and gestures to go along with it. And I said to myself, like, the world stopped, Jay. I swear to God. The world stopped when she was like, "I want one of those full body scans." I almost heard it reverberate in my mind. I looked into one of those full body scans years ago. Like, I don't know what it might have been, like 3 years before or 4 years before. I can go to my Gmail and certainly, benchmark the time. But I was like, that's a sign. I knew it. I just knew it. So I had one fainting episode, which Kelly will talk to you about, but I thought like that was related to an intermittent fast. And then I noticed that my times were also too were coming down from Orange Theory, but ever so slightly. So it's like, wow. And I was starting to put on weight. Okay. Usually weight loss is a symptom of cancer, not weight gain. So it's like, this is a perfect time to recalibrate my health. I went for the Rolls Royce of physicals, of executive physicals at the Princeton Longevity Center. And I was like, sign me up for everything there is. Oh, John Morgan, I love you too. Thank you for being here, John. And so at the end of the day, I'll never forget it, Jay. I'm sitting across from, I went to the Princeton Longevity Center, sitting down across from the founder. And he turns around. And so I'm sitting at his desk. He's sitting mahogany desk, like the degrees in the background. And he points these two monitors to me, and one lights up. And then he's like, yeah, here is like, here's your lungs and here's this and that. And then he goes, and then another screen kind of lights up. And this light was like very blinding. And he's like, yeah, and there's a 2.6 centimeter tumor on your right lung. We need you to get it checked out as soon as possible. Denise from the front desk will set you up with a PET scan. And I was like, whoa, like that was a defining moment. I crossed over into another world, and I left the old world behind, and I haven't been there since.
So that was the moment. That was the moment of your cancer diagnosis. You're sitting there in the doctor's office. Tell me, what was going through your head?
Yeah. So it wasn't, so I was like, holy, you can fill in the blanks there, right? One of the things that I elected to do is I also did a blood test. I did the Gallery test, right? We've got all of this. You yourself, like, you are a steward of great technology over Titleist. You understand, what great technology looks like. So I bought into great technology. I bought into, hey, I'm going to do this Gallery test, and they're going to test my blood for whatever it was, 200 and something things of cancer, right? And that came back negative. So the doctor said to me, hey, this could be nothing. We've seen that this could be nothing. Based on your Gallery test, it might not be nothing. So I didn't know that it was cancer at then and there. What we did was I went for a PET scan, and a PET scan is, I forgot what the acronym stands for, a positive emitter, whatever, very technical. Basically, it's this: PET scan is the scan that determines whether or not that you have cancer or not. They inject you with, and I remember this being almost like I felt like I was in a James Bond movie, Jay, that, she came in and there were this thing and this like tubular, like platinum thing that she had to unlock, and that they were injecting radioactive solution into my arm, right, for the first time. And I am like almost having an out of body experience. And eventually I got the results from the PET scan. Right now, with technology, ladies and gentlemen, all of your medical records come through to this device over here. And so the flood of information, I was immediately set up with an oncologist over at NYU Langone, who then helped me with a thoracic surgeon. And fast forward, this is 4 weeks later, they were removing part of my right lung.
So let me stop you there. You just covered
part of my right lung.
You just covered a ton of time and life experience within 4 weeks. Tell me, what was it like? How did you, this is what I think would be very helpful for people, Tina. How did you process life in that 4-week window between maybe a diagnosis to having a piece of your lung removed?
So I knew that this is going to sound so weird, but the whole thing felt divinely guided. And I'll tell you why. When I was on the road to the Princeton Longevity Center, I was driving on Route 1 in Princeton, New Jersey. Forget if it was north or south from Pennsylvania. And there were 2 jump trucks in front of me, and I'm driving in the middle lane. And the jump truck in front of me says, "In God we trust. In God we trust." And so I'm like, isn't that interesting? I'm on my way to an executive physical to get a full body scan and a full, assessment of my health inside and out. Nothing more comprehensive than what I was doing. And so I said, I was like, isn't that amazing? And I said to myself, I drove to see whether or not the dump truck in front of the other dump truck, because they looked like they were going to like a site, like they almost matched. So I was like, I wonder if the dump truck in front of the other dump truck says, "In God we trust." And you know what, Jay? It didn't. It was only the dump truck in front of me. So you ask how I felt. I felt divinely guided. I can't explain it other than I was like, okay, I'm going to trust God. There's a lot of people on this call and watching this. So, you can have your own beliefs. But I was like, I'm going to trust God that whatever is about to unfold, that he is watching over me, and that this is much bigger than I ever imagined. So I definitely went into panic mode. I'm a proud mom to Rachel and Dave. So I've got 2 kids and I've got now 3 grandkids, but spoke to my kids, obviously spoke to Mark, my significant other, my mother. So, it's like parts of this journey are revealed to you not at all one time. It's not like you could look at a financial plan and say, okay, we're going to make this maneuver. We're going to do this in Q1. We're going to do this in Q2. A cancer journey is like something that unfolds slowly. Okay. And there's a lot of waiting. So after part of the lung was removed, I had to wait for biomarker testing where they actually tested the tumor to see what type of cancer it was. So obviously we knew that it was a form of lung cancer, but I didn't realize that there are different strains of lung cancer. And so I remember my oncologist at the time saying, almost like congratulating me, that I had one of the most common forms of lung cancer, non-small cell lung cancer, exon 21 L858R. So there are different strains. My strain is an environmental type of lung cancer. They asked me if I was a first responder. They asked me where I was on 9/11. They asked me where I live. They asked me where I went to, what type of job that I have, like, i.e., I'm not working at DuPont. I'm not working in a chemical plant or anything like that, right? I live in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. I'm not like, my house isn't next to a high wire or whatever, right? So a lot of things unfolded at the time, but within weeks of that first scan, after that PET scan, I knew that I had cancer. And originally I started out as a stage 2B. So originally what I was told was, hey, you caught it early. You're going to be fine. You caught it early. This is just a blip. And that's what I was told. So here I am doing the happy dance, part of my lungs removed. Then after that, I go for chemotherapy, and then what's called a targeted therapy, which basically is a pill by mouth. So they're like, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to remove part of your lung. We're going to go for chemotherapy. You're going to be on this targeted therapy for the rest of your life. And that's it. So they were painting like a yellow brick road.
Did you see it as a yellow brick road at the time?
Partially, yes. Because again, I am leaning into the professionals, the gods to be, who deal with lung cancer every single day of their life. And I'm still very, very new. So I don't know how you felt when you came into financial services, but I was like, wow, I've got a lot to learn. I've got a lot to learn here. I remember when I first came into this industry and I was like, wow, I knew marketing super, super well. Had a master's from NYU, taught in the graduate program. But if you asked me what an RMD was, what an ETF was, what an expense ratio was, any of those things, I'd be like, what'd you say? Or what a fiduciary is. So cancer is the same thing. You're thrown into a world of acronyms and terms that you don't know exactly what they mean. So you are trusting the powers to be, the people that are taking care of you. And if they're telling me that this is just a blip, I'm thinking this is just a blip.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
so Tina, when I found out that I had cancer via email from my doctor, and then we couldn't even schedule an appointment for a couple of weeks. And then there was all kinds of acronyms in the diagnosis. I was very careful to not research anything because I know myself. I would spend too much time going deep until I actually understood what it was. And so between the time I got that email and I sat down with the doctor, it was about 2 weeks. That was brutal. I would love to know your experience and how you mentally coped with that window before when you had the diagnosis, before you fully understood what you were up against.
Part of that is my own faith and spirituality. So again, it goes back to saying, okay, I kept on reminding myself, in God we trust, in God we trust, in God we trust. So part of the way that I was being, that I kept myself kind of contained and not worried. Thank you, Ariel. I see Ariel Serber here, and I appreciate you so much, Ariel. Um, Part of that was just trusting in a higher power and believing that there was a purpose and intentionality. One of our favorite words, and intentionally, that why I was on this path. Um, since then, like you go through different highs and lows. A cancer journey isn't all up, even if they tell you that this is just a blip and you're going to be fine. You go through incredible panic modes where you are like, oh my God, I can't believe that this is even happening to me. And Jay, it's not one particular thing. Like having a strong sense of faith really helps. But that alone isn't it. It's who you surround yourself with. It's your everyday board of directors. It's your kids. It's your family. It's your parents. It's your spouse. It's the people that you work with. And it's also to the things that you do. You know, cancer is a very solitude journey. It's also the things you do as an individual, whether or not that you decide to take a walk or make a conscious decision on what you're eating or what you're not eating. Like, you know, in my case, I gave up alcohol almost 3 years ago, right? So what I was trying to do is I was trying to control various aspects of the things that I could control. I could control my eating decisions. I could control my physical activities. Journaling helped a great deal too. And then I leaned into the experiences of other people and other cancer survivors to then layer on additional alternative techniques that are still with me today. One of them being acupuncture. So
Yeah.
never in a million years, like I wasn't familiar with acupuncture. Now that I've been in acupuncture for almost 3 years, I'm like, why wasn't I doing this before the cancer? I might have prevented, now that's a strong word, you know, but ways to increase your immunity and to help your body, your physical body just maintain homeostasis, if you will, is through acupuncture. Your acupuncturist is like, hey, what are you struggling with? Well, last night when I went in there, Jay, I was struggling with nausea mostly and fatigue. So I had just have had brain radiation less than 2 weeks ago. Yes, you heard that correctly, ladies and gentlemen. Brain radiation less than 2 weeks ago. So, that's a side effect that acupuncture helps me to deal with. There's one other person that is an incredible part of this, and that is a counselor, a therapist. Okay. You asked about, Jay, what that time factor was, and you unfortunately have had like, a negative experience of having to wait for things. And once you do get the diagnosis, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, it's not like, oh, sure, we have an opening for you tomorrow at 10 a.m. Why don't you come in? That's like, no, they aren't your financial advisor that will move heaven and earth for you. Not even close. Okay. And then you have the underpinning of your insurance, right? To complicate matters too. so there's so much at stake, but a great therapist will help you to also is in that, power team of people around me that keep Tina, not from losing her, what, right? Although sometimes I do, and that's okay. Like my therapist has told me like that is absolutely natural. They affirm that, yes, the emotions that you're feeling are purely natural, but, she's helped me most specifically with scanxiety. Right now I'm in a clinical trial at Memorial Sloan Kettering. I'm getting scans every 6 weeks of my brain, my chest, and my pelvis. Ask any cancer patient and they'll tell you that we live from scan to scan. So we've done a lot of work there to help me to, remain calm in between scans and manage my energy. But the most important thing I think for anybody listening from a cancer perspective, managing the physical parts are easy. This is a game of the mind. I repeat that. This is a game of the mind. You have to your mind gets battle tested. You thought that volatility was hard. You thought recessions were hard. You thought the pandemic was hard. I'm here to tell you it's nothing compared to living scan to scan and having cancer.
Tina, you and I used to talk on Friday afternoons, and I would generally try to call after 4:00 because you would try and get some work done when you were going through chemotherapy during the day, and then you'd just kind of be out of steam, and we would talk. And you presented that term scanxiety to me, and I hadn't been through the next set of scans, so I had only gone through it during the haze of the beginning. And I thought, and I asked you, I said, "What is that?" And she goes, "Oh, the anxiety you get before a scan." I was like, it did not register because I hadn't experienced it. And now, of course, I have. And it's real. And you don't know it until you've gone through it. So if you're watching this or listening to this and you're starting down your own cancer journey, like it's okay. It's part of the process to have that type of anxiety. Another thing that you and I would talk about regularly is the importance of having the right people around you. And you were very intentional about letting people close to you know and leaning into them when you weren't doing well, whereas I had not done that, which I thought was a different kind of journey. Tell me, how did you structure that network of support that you built for yourself in the beginning?
So I had to make a decision whether or not that I was going to go public. You and I are both active on social media. And early on, I made the intentional decision for an important reason. The energy that it would have taken to hide this from people who were most closest to me, and even people who just knew me, who had some familiarity. I didn't want my energy going to that. Nor did I want people to all of a sudden assume that, wow, why isn't she at T3 this year? She always comes to T3. And so it was really important that I was open up and that I was honest with people right from the start and saying, I'm going through a horrific time right now. And I want to be totally open and totally transparent about it so that if I'm acting peculiar or if I'm doing something that I don't normally do that doesn't seem Tina-ish, that you know why. And a second part of this goes back to, again, in God we trust. And I felt like I was like, wow, what are the chances that I have lung cancer now and I am at stage 4, and that I also have not only a working knowledge, but a deep domain experience and expertise in creating content, podcasts, YouTube channel, email. So I always felt like this was God's way of kind of shepherding me and saying, Tina, it would be pretty amazing if you started to share what's going on with you so that other people who need to remain private for their own personal reasons, and I don't judge Jay, whether or not that somebody is like there are some really important reasons why people don't go public with it. And I respect that. This is very much an individual solitude journey, and people have to make that decision. I just did it for me because also too is my way of reaching out for help. And I knew that if I made it public, that I would attract people, circumstances, situations, people into my life that have helped me tremendously. But I also knew that this was, I feel like God's way of saying, okay, you now have a responsibility to pay it forward with the gifts that you've been given in marketing, and you know how to do this. Hence, you and I are talking in October, and October is finally the launch of Lung Cancer Strong. I bought the domains almost 3 years ago. And when I was first diagnosed, Jay, and you asked some really great questions, the other thing that I did is that I went to digital channels like I always do. What's on social media? Who's podcasting about lung cancer? Very few people, spoiler alert. Who's doing videos on lung cancer? Very few people, spoiler alert. Who's writing blogs and information about lung cancer and what all of this means? Certainly not very many people. Who's on Instagram? So I was able, there've been, since my diagnosis, which was nearly 3 years ago, there have been other channels like Young Lung Cancer Initiatives. They have a phenomenal social media YouTube presence as well as Instagram presence, right? They deal with, there are people right now, if you go to Young Lung Cancer Initiative and you go to the Instagram channel, you will be shocked. You will be shocked at how many 30-year-olds and how many 40-year-old mothers with small children are being diagnosed the way that I was diagnosed, with horrific, just their lives being thrown into a blender. Anyway, so back to that content. There was a gaping hole of content. Right. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to do this Lung Cancer Strong, and I'm going to create a docuseries, and I'm going to share my experiences, kind of like it goes back to your father and you and Chris have 2 boys. What to expect when you're expecting. Right. And so I was like, why does nobody tell you like what to expect if you're getting a robotic lobectomy? What to expect if you're getting stereotactic radiosurgery to your brain? And so like, there isn't that information out there. There are some channels with physicians and whatnot, but my oncologist has never gotten brain radiation, nor have they gotten chemotherapy. Okay. And the patient wants to hear from the patient's perspective. Don't preach from an ivory tower about all of the side effects of chemotherapy and stereotactic radiosurgery and a robotic lobectomy. I want to hear from the person that's done it and the person that went through it. Okay. So anyway, so this month we finally, and thank you to Intentionally for all of the branding for Lung Cancer Strong. You won't find it online yet. We're still in like any digital marketer will tell you that a lot of the work is not sexy, and it's all of your standard operating procedures and things behind. But we are ready to launch the podcast. I'll be recording the first episode on my 59th birthday this weekend. Okay.
Awesome.
And thanks to AI too. Like, I already have a full season's worth of content. Jay, I just didn't have, and I should have called you up on a Friday. I doubted whether or not that I would be here. I didn't know. It's like lung cancer. Aren't you supposed to die like now? All right. Weren't you supposed to be dead like yesterday? I hate to be so, literal about it, but that's really that's how we've been trained to think. So I was like, well, I bought the URLs, but it took me almost 3 years to decide that I was going to really devote my time and energy, and that I would be confident that I would be here for it.
Well, listen, I called you, and 5 people knew that I had cancer. My wife, my parents, my 2 kids. And we talked through whether it's something that I should share or not. And at that time, I guess it was 2.5, 3 years ago, you said your choice to do this was exactly the same reason that you're sharing today. And the reason you're doing all this cancer strong stuff is that you get to be a resource for people who are struggling. And then they can get some ideas on how to think through and handle this journey that you've been on. And that's why sharing it is so impactful, Tina. You've done such a great job with that. Tell me, for the person that is watching this 3 years from now that just got diagnosed, because that's how these types of episodes work. They get a diagnosis, they start Googling, they're asking AI what they should be thinking about. What is the first couple of things that they should do after a diagnosis to get prepared for the journey?
First of all, they need to be calm. Just take a breath. Just take a breath. A cancer diagnosis today in 2025 and 2026 does not mean that you're dying tomorrow. So understand that there have been modern advances in technology, the same way that we see in fintech all the time, that help to perpetuate a patient's life. Okay, so know that that's number one. Number two is to build your internal board of directors. The people that need to know, i.e., maybe a business partner, obviously your kids, your family. But I've even seen people not tell their family for various reasons. And again, that is every person has to make their individual decisions. But I would say you need to build an internal board of directors because, like a certified financial planner, which you are, Jay, every decision matters. I'll say that again. Every decision matters. And as the patient, you are emotionally charged. So you might not be the best person. The cancer might be happening to you, but you might not be the best person to help make that decision. Okay. Number three, it matters where you get treated. I literally had an oncologist tell me that, Tina, it doesn't matter where you get treated. Okay. I am on my third cancer center. I right now am being treated at Memorial Sloan Kettering in New York City. They are the number 2 cancer center in the world behind MD Anderson in Texas. It does matter where you are treated because of your access to certain therapies or not. So when I was at my previous institution, which I will not name, but again, did the best job for me that they could, given the parameters and given who they were. But when a lesion showed up on my liver, Jay, and they told me that I would have to wait 7 weeks until an MRI on my liver. And I said, is our system here so bad and so depleted? And I was willing to drive anywhere. So within your app, you're making these appointments, right, Jay? And I'm like, okay, MRI liver, MRI. Anytime, any distance, any day of the week. 7 and anytime, anyway. And the first appointment that I could get was 7 weeks out. And I literally called I emailed through the portal because that's the way of the game here. And I said, could somebody please help me find an earlier appointment? And they said, no, you're going to have to call. You're going to have to call every day to see whether or not that there's been a cancellation or not. And at that point, I fired my portfolio manager because an oncologist is like your portfolio manager, ladies and gentlemen. There's so many ties between personal finance, between, what we do in wealth management and your medical care. Your oncologist is the quarterback of your entire medical, health portfolio. And when they told me that they couldn't help me find an earlier appointment, I said, I'm done. I'm done. I'm out. And so I went to Memorial Sloan Kettering. Within 2 weeks, I had an appointment with an oncologist who then, once I decided that my care was going to be there, I had to have all of my records not only ported over, but Memorial Sloan Kettering, like every cancer center, is like, well, we need you to do the scans on our machines. We need our machines. So I had to do everything all over again, which was a real pain in the butt, you guys. It was not easy. Brain MRIs are not easy. Neither are CT scans with contrast. So this is, again, at point number 3. It matters. It matters where you get treated. Right now, I'm in a clinical trial at Memorial Sloan Kettering. My previous cancer center to this, the second one, could not offer me the clinical trial. Right now, that clinical trial has provided stability to my body right now, to all of my lungs, my organs, and all of that. No traditional therapy was doing that, which is reason why the liver lesion showed up. So, where you get treated matters. And if you have a serious cancer condition, and every cancer is serious, I want to say, right? But certainly lung cancer ranks right up there. More people die from lung cancer than any other cancer. I forgot the exact statistics, but you could all, we could ask ChatGPT or Perplexity and it'll come up. But it is a incredible number. So where you get treated dictates what therapies, and also too, the time reaction. My whole thing was, I looked at this, Jay, like active portfolio management. I was like, I want my oncologist to be active, not passive. This isn't like, I want them to be looking at the market every day, right? And to be making maneuvers and making trades and deciding to do things or not to decide to do things. I need my oncologist to be an active portfolio manager, and I need to matter. And so if you feel like I felt like I asked for help. It was the first time that I raised my hand. I had a 2-year relationship with that cancer center. And believe me, ladies and gentlemen, I'm an easy patient. I do a lot of research on my own. I know how to dig for answers. I'm very nice to people. But this told me that you as my advisor weren't willing to look at me and make active trades. And so it's like, okay, we're out of here. So a research, there are community centers, and then there are more of those research hospitals that have incredible, an underpinning of philanthropy and capital and all of that, the latest machines, the best people in the world. There's a reason why they attract top tier talent. Now, some cancer patients, Jay, do a little bit of both. They say, okay, I'm going to utilize my community clinic to get like my radiation or my chemo, but I'm going to utilize an MD Anderson or Sloan to give me an opinion. So it's not different. Again, going back to wealth management, how many times have we seen that there have been multiple advisors on an account just to even verify and say, hey, is my financial advisor doing the right thing? Right. So it's kind of like that. So you can have the guidance of a research hospital and still be treated locally. And then again, maybe once every quarter or once every 6 months, you're flying back and forth to, New York. But I didn't realize the difference in the what was accessible to me as a patient until I really needed it. And there is a huge difference between the major providers and the community centers. And I'll leave it at that. Every person, this is not medical advice. Every person listening, you have to do what's in your best interest, right? That sounds familiar, everybody. Fiduciary standard, do what's in your best interest, but know that there are absolute differences.
Tina, that's a great framework for somebody who has their diagnosis now. They're trying to figure out what to do and the approach to take from here. Let's come to today. So you have been working this whole time, and you've been working at a high level. In fact, I saw you at a conference in California a month ago. So how have you, 3 years in, been able to juggle work and, going through this cancer battle?
I'm lucky enough that I've been at I've known Kelly Waldrick. Kelly Waldrick is founder and CEO, my business partner over at Intentionally. 3 years ago, I sold my firm to her, C-Suite Social Media. And her and I put my life in Intentionally. I said, this is the last place where I want to work before retirement. And I moved all my eggs into the basket. I think that, I've been very open and I've been very transparent. And this, again, has been my choice with what's been going on. There were times that I felt like, wow, maybe 5 days is not the right schedule for me. And part of this is my own kind of unwillingness to, to deal with my prognosis, to say, hey, I'm feeling great. Why can't I work 5 days a week? I feel phenomenal. But, as things to develop, I've had a recurrence. I've needed treatment. Last year at this time, I went for 33 rounds of radiation to my chest. So I've been able to work with, because I've modified my work schedule accordingly. Okay. I didn't get that right from the beginning, Jay. I didn't. But then I started to say, oh, okay. Whew, well, what happens if I take my responsibilities? And originally, when I started out off at Intentionally, I was chief growth officer. Well, I had to change my chief growth officer that's got stage 4 cancer. I don't really think so. That's not going to work. So we made some really hard decisions. That was hard. I love being chief of community. It's a much better title and it's a much better role for me. But I'm not going to lie. I've worked all my life to get where I am. And then all of a sudden, we need to rethink my title. We need to rethink my responsibilities. Emotionally, that was devastating and that was crushing for me, everybody. I'll be honest. But with Kelly's help, I was able to then say, okay, what could I do? And events are part of what I can do. So you had rattled off that you and I were both at Future Proof. I will be at Advisor Hub's 2025 Advisors to Watch Summit Thursday in New York City. I'll be moderating a panel at Advise AI in Las Vegas next week. And the following week, I'll be at Schwab Impact. Let me tell you how that happens. That also happens by not only collaborating and co-teaming with your work, but also too, my doctors. My doctors know that I love my job. I love being at Intentionally. And that I have asked them, could we modify my chemo schedule so that I do it when I'm back from Schwab? Instead of a Wednesday, can we do it another day that week? Sure, Tina, we could do that on a Friday. So, cancer patients, it's again, there's a lot of fluidity, and whenever I travel, I get doctor's clearance. They look at my blood almost every single week. I'm at Sloan. I'm literally a lab rat as a part of the clinical trial, right? They have my diagnostics up to the minute. So they know, hey, my weight, more than just your weight and your blood pressure, complete medical diagnostic, especially with related to the blood. So the way that I'm able to do it is not only through just the work schedule, but just my doctors literally giving me clearance to go. When they told me I could go to Future Proof, their condition was you have to wear compression stockings. Okay, great. Exactly. They wanted me to wear compression stockings. Bombas actually make some really good compression socks, you guys, if anybody needs them. So that's how we make it happen. And events, gosh, you guys know how much I love events. Like I to be in this industry is it's such an honor. It's a privilege that Jay, that I get to hang with you. I get to hang with JB. We get to be at Future Proof. The whole experience that they put on is absolutely incredible. Big shout out to Matt Middleton, Chris Cherry, everybody over at their organization, Josh Brown. You know, like this industry, we all collaborate with one another and lean into each other. And so events are such an important part of what I do. And I still I'm obsessed with marketing. I wrote a great article from the last Future Proof. If you guys are following me on LinkedIn, just check my LinkedIn history from this week and you'll see it. If you had $500,000 for growth marketing, what would you do with it? We had a fascinating conversation at the CMO Collective that was like, had almost 100 CMOs, standing room only. People literally couldn't get in, right? You know this, Jay. I love events. I was just a wealth mosaic. So the timing of that, and we also take a divide and conquer approach. Big shout out to not only Kelly, Joe Stoiter, who's a partner, Randy Lambert, who's also a partner. We do a divide and conquer approach. So my other business partners have been very much attuned to the fact that, hey, I might be at Schwab, right? But I might not be at the kiosk the whole day and the whole night, right? Might be there for part of the time. Might need to arrive a little bit later the first day and not set things up. So I think your teammate members, either they, and my team members have been extraordinary, that they have, helped me to navigate that. Yes, I'm going to Advisor Hub this Thursday, but I'm also arriving there the night before, and I'm getting a hotel room so that I can make the women's breakfast at 7:50 in the morning and not have to leave my house at 5 a.m. Right? So I have leadership that respects the place that I'm in, but I also deliver on the other side. This isn't this isn't poor Tina. This is like, Tina does an incredible job for our company, and let's make sure that continues, and let's give her the best environmentally, let's give her the best playbook so that she can do what she loves to do and what comes natural to her. So that's what I would say about that, Jay.
Tina, our time is up, but I got to tell you, I'm so grateful that you came on. This is different than a typical episode because I wanted to give you a platform and a space to share your journey to help other people who are struggling. And man, you came through. If somebody wanted to connect with you and reach out, what would be the best way to do that?
Connect with me definitely on LinkedIn. And then my email address is tina@growintentionally.com. And thank you again, Jay. I love you. You picked this, you started this Resilient Advisor podcast years and years ago. How many years ago was it?
It's about 10 now.
It's about close. 10, yeah. Right? That keyword resilient. Who knew that you and I would be talking 10 years later? Thank you for giving me a platform, because I know, and you will be the first to know, Jay, this person emailed me, this person got in touch with me. So thank you for giving me the platform, that I hope that this information just helps another person. And thanks for allowing me to put it out there, because there's a gaping hole in the amount of information there are for cancer patients. So I thank God for my life, that I'm able to add to that body, that knowledge body. And again, I thank Kelly Waltrick over at Intentionally, who makes my life possible over, and that we're able to have these conversations, and that you're able to see me at events.
Excellent. Tina, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks, Jay.
The listener of this content should not assume that any information presented or made available on or through this media channel is receipt of or substitute for personalized investment advice. Titleist Asset Management, LLC, or TAM, is an SEC-registered investment advisor. Registration with the SEC does not imply a certain level of skill or expertise. TAM provides its services to individuals, high net worth investors, including trusts and other legal entities, and provides access to model portfolio strategies offered through its affiliate, Shorebird Capital LP. For a copy of TAM's disclosure documents, please visit www.advisorinfo.sec.gov and follow the search instructions.